So hi, hello, and welcome everyone to my session today on Revolutionize Your Power Apps experience to transform, energize, and turbocharge UI and UX design. So just briefly about me, I work as a lead functional consultant for Hitachi. I'm based in Scotland, and I love anything that is Power Platform and UX related. I'm also one of the group leaders for the Power Platform UX UI Allies user group. We have monthly calls. I will share some details at the end of this session. And also, I have my own blog and I create some online content on LinkedIn that again relate to the Power Platform and UX. So to start with, I would like to share a quick history lesson with you. Um, so in the early days of the computer application, during what we called a first wave of digitalization, very little attention was given to design and usability. The main focus at the time was on the functionality. So that started to change during the second wave when companies like Apple or Google set new design standards and the user experience become more kind of key part of their products. So fast forward to today, UX become critical in the app design process, and that history shows us that products and apps they were built in the UX at their core stood that test of time. Other products become so products built with the UX evolve while the others become obsolete. So again, if we want to build the apps that will last that test of time, we do need to focus on user experience, and that also applies to power apps. But user experience is a quite broad field and actually can take years to fully master it. So today I would like to simplify that for you and take you on an exciting UX journey. So once upon a time, in this rapidly changing digital landscape, there were two noble apps, model-driven app and Canvas app. They were both functional and reliable, but they were created with the spirit of 80s during those early days of the digitalizations. So those two mighty heroes were beloved by their creators, but deep down they knew they were capable of so much more. So one day they heard the whispers of the Power Apps UX verse, which is a magical universe where the core principle of user experience come to life. So eager to unlock their potential, they embark on a grand adventure to travel through the through the diverse lands of the UX verse, which where each of the places represent a different aspect of UX design. Their quest was to transform, energize, and turbocharge their interfaces, making their user experience legendary. And so on, their quest for greatness began. But how will our heroes find that mystical UX verse? So the apps created offer to find the map of the UX verse for our heroes. And despite that urban legend that everyone only ever considers the first pages of the Google search, the app creator went as far as page 7 when only the bravest there to check. And then here he found what he was looking for. So as you can see, the UX verse map glows with the potential, but there is a twist. All of the destinations on the map are locked and they are also covered in a purple mist. So it turns out that these lands can only be unlocked when our heroes arrive at their gates and successfully complete the challenges within it. So let's start our first adventure. So the very first adventure is in a place called Empathy Heartland. The Empathy Heartland is where our heroes will learn all about the user-centered design. In here, also they meet their end user who offers them a valuable wisdom. To create a truly legendary experience, you must first understand and empathize with the people who use your apps. So the effective so the key element of that user-centered design is empathy. If you want to create a meaningful designs, we need to understand the user emotions, behavior, but also the pain points. So how are we gonna do that? The next element in the user-centered design is research. So we don't need to be a professional UX researcher, but tools like user interview surveys or even usability testing work can really help us to gather valuable insights. Also, that information can help us with design decision and future prioritization. The next one is the feedback loop. So it's not only about doing the early research, but also to constantly collect further feedback and make the adjustment. So it's a cycle of listening and refining to improve that experience for the user over time. And the last lesson in here is about prototyping. Again, a very early prototyping and creating the iterative design really help the end users to refine and optimize the UX through the process. So before our heroes leave for the next adventure, the end user reveal a promise for them that if they will succeed on their journey through the Power Apps UX verse, they will be awarded the crown of user delight, which is the legendary artifact that symbolizes an app that not only meets but also exceeds user expectation. So our heroes, eager to find that legendary artifact, continue on their journey. So the next place on our adventure is design pyramids. So in here, the first lesson is that the foundation of design of pyramid is functionality. So without functionality, so the foundation of the pyramid is functionality. So existence of any app is based on fulfilling the core task that the apps were designed to do. So without that, the pyramid will crumble and will be unable to meet the essential needs of our users. So climbing up, the second element of the pyramid is reliability. So our apps not only need to be functional, but they need to be functional all the time. The next one is the usability. So climbing to the next level, our apps needs to be functional, reliable, but also they need to be intuitive and easy to navigate. And once we unlock those three levels, then we can aim for the last level of pleasurability, which is not only about meeting those needs of our users, but also about delighting them. So the kind of key lessons from visiting the design pyramids is that sometimes we aim to really create those beautiful apps with a big focus on the user interface, but looking at those levels, we first of all we need to ensure that our apps are functional. Otherwise, we'll never be able to create those meaningful experiences for our users. So moving next, we are traveling to the hills of UX law. So in here, each of the hills represent a foundational law of user experiences, which needs to be understood and incorporated to our designs. There are probably around 20 laws, if no more. If you would like to find out more, I highly recommend that resource. For today's session, I only pick up my 6 favorite ones, just to explain what they are. I would like to show you some examples. So for the Canvas app and applying one of the laws, let's start with the fits law. This law refers to optimizing interactive elements. So it's about placing the elements together and also making them big enough for the users to easily reach and click on them. So when we're taking as an example presented here, a mobile application, when we think about using the app with our thumbs, the area highlighted in blue, this is the most neutral and most easily to reach by the users. So we should aim to place the buttons within that area. Just to make it quite clear on purpose, I made I made the slightly bigger proportion, but again, even if we're gonna look at those buttons, again, they are quite small. Again, to make them more easily clickable for the user, they need to be big enough to be able to do it. And also we need to minimize the distance between those buttons, but not leave it too small, so that it can be still easily the user can still easily click on them. Next one is about the power of familiarity, also defined, also referred to as Jacob's law. So again, we don't need to reinvent app interfaces each time we design them. We should always use the familiar patterns. So for example, place the navigation on the left for the Canvas app, because this is more this is how the expected that's that kind of expected pattern that most of the apps will follow. Again, if we struggle to know how to create an app and how to place the elements, there's so many online resources like websites like Dribble or Elements and Vato, when we can find those inspiration, not necessarily create exactly the same app, but as I said, just have those inspiration and try to follow what the user will expect to see within our apps that we're building. And the next one is called Higgs law. It's about simplifying choices. It's also referred to as paradox of choice. My favorite example outside the app development is when we're going to a shop and we're trying to buy a toothpaste. As you know, there's so many toothpaste to choose from. So again, if we will apply that rule within that app, it's quite difficult to use for a user to make a decision and select one of the potential items on the application. So when possible, we can, for example, give that scrolling experience when it only show 3 or 4 items at once, or again, if possible, merge them together and limit that those choices for users. So moving to a few examples from the model-driven apps. So the first one is Tesla law, which is around simplifying complexity. So this law defines that is, we cannot avoid complexity with an application completely. However, the complexity should be the designer responsibility to handle for our users. Again, obviously, we can create the automation in the background, like flows and additional logic, or apply things like calculated fields and so on. So even sometimes when we don't have that direct requirement from customer, I need that to be automated. If a user explained to you a current process which is quite manual, wherever you can see automations and improvements to make the process easier for them and avoid that data duplication, you should always recommend a solution for that. Moving forward, it's a law of proximity, which it's also referred to as grouping related elements together. So again, applying sections and tabs in the model-driven apps really help the user to digest through all the information and fill any forms, because again, all those fields are grouped together. And the next one, the last one, it's also it's called Miller's law, which is around chunking information. So again, for the model-driven app, I recommend to, for example, apply business process flow that help the users to perform a task and only focus on those elements within a given step of the process, rather than expecting to fill that form all at once. It's all about those more manageable steps for the users. So moving next, we are traveling to a new place called Colors Valley. And then here, the first lessons is around psychology. So we need to be aware that certain color can evoke specific emotions and also influence the user behavior. So, for example, red color is all about passion, but also urgency. While colors like blue can evoke trust and reliability. So if you can think, most of like banks or financial institution will use the blue color within their application, as I said, just to evoke that emotion of trust. But when it comes to the colors, we don't need to stick to just using a single color within our app. We can introduce multiple colors. However, to safely do that, I recommend a rule called 60-30-10, when the 60% of the screen color will be that primary color, which provides like consistent like a guiding presence across the UI. The secondary color should be around 30% of the screen. That just adds the variety without really overwhelming the user. And the last one, around the 10%, should be an accent color, and that should drive that 10% color should be used to highlight critical elements like buttons and so on, and really guide the user attention to that color. So as we know, with the model-driven apps, we have some limitations to adding a bit of a splash of color. However, for the Canvas app, we have more of that flexibility, and things like applying backgrounds, some settled backgrounds, just to kind of make the experience more pleasurable for the users. One of the things we can use is gradients as well. But even when mixing and adding those colors, again, that should not be done random. We should always ensure color harmony. So there's a couple of things, a couple of ways of ensuring that color harmony. So the kind of more classic approach is using what we call a color wheel, or with the recent new tools they are available to us, even the ChatGPT or Copilot, we can generate a simple prompt for the AI to help us to create that color palette and then tweak it to what it should look like. So yeah, as I said, couple of methods. Recently, I start to play more with which is getting the help from AI to generate those friendly color palettes. So moving next, we are traveling to the iconography forest. So in here, our heroes will discover a few lessons regarding the icons. So when it comes to the icons, icons are used as a universal language to create, to communicate a message to our users. So thanks to that, they can replace some very lengthy text description, which will result in the interfaces being cleaner and also more accessible. So in the world when our screen are just getting smaller and smaller, those icons can really help us to save that precious space without sacrificing the clarity of what the users are seeing on our screens. Overall, if well-designed icons can also enhance that overall visual appeal and contribute to the more engaging user experience. However, when choosing the app, we should always ensure familiarity and consistency. So when it comes to the consistency, I would like to give you some examples what to look out for. So when we have two different sets of the icons, when we have a mix of the color and the black one versus the black one, we should always opt in for keeping them consistent and, for example, all in the black or color or keep them colorful. The next thing we should pay attention to when it comes to our icons is also level of detail. So as you can see, the one on the left have way more complexity, while the one on the right are much simpler. So again, that consistency about the level of detail. Similarly to the feel, do not mix what I would call empty icons with the filled one. Always opt in to have them either or. The same for roundness. Try to pay attention to the corners of the apps using. Again, find a similar looking one, and also the same for the weight and thickness. Do not mix slightly thicker one with the more slim one, as you can see on the left, and again on the right are the good examples. So looking into more practical approach of using the icons into our apps, we can apply things like icons in the tabs that can be achieved by using some of the emoji symbols. Some people say it looks good, some people say it might look tacky. The only thing I will call out on this, that it might sometimes cause accessibility issues and compatibility issues across the devices. So if you do want to opt in for something like this, just be aware of those two. Also, if you want to save some precious screen space on the forms and implement reference panel implement reference panel to group some of the subgrids together, that having those icons really help the user to navigate through it and change based on the what icon shows. And again, if you're creating custom tables within the Dataverse, always remember to update those default puzzle icons, and always avoid using the default one. Always add your own custom icon that will be displayed on the menu for the users. And similarly, looking for the Canvas apps, again, icons can be great and can be easily understood. However, sometimes there might be some ambiguity what the certain icon can mean. One of the examples I can give, it's there was an app built for farmers, and they done the research after that, and they asked the farmers what a heart icon means for them, and they indicated that it means healthy product, while in some of the application we can be more used to use icon for marking something as a favorite. So again, just to avoid that confusion, what the apps, what the icon stands for, it's always a good practice to try to use the icons with names. And the last one is again adding some extra visual appeal to the buttons. We can also add some icons to them. So moving next to our next adventure, it's the script city. So imagine walking through, for example, Times Square in New York City, when you'll be surrounded by lots of flashing billboards, neon signs, and also screen that all competing for your attention. So having like different fonts and different sizing, and also randomly placing your text within the application can create a similar effect in our application as we'll be going through that busy Times Square. So there are a few rules that we need to be aware and apply to really help with that design. So the foundation for our typography, it's the readability. So it doesn't matter how stylish our fonts will be, if the users will struggle to read it, then the apps will fail to communicate effectively. So the best approach is to choose the fonts. They will, no matter what size and devices the user will use, those fonts needs to be readable for them. The next one is using a hierarchy. So if we creating headlines, we should opt in for large bold fonts, just to draw the user attention, the most important information first. And then for things like subheadings, we should opt in for more medium sizes and not necessarily bold one, because again, we want that headings to stand out more. And the last one is consistency. Ideally, do not use more than 2 or 3 fonts across your app. Always aim to limit them, as I said, 2 or 3 the most. And moving to the next one, just to give you an example of how the visual hierarchy works. So again, I'll let you read through that, just to kind of, as I said, show the example of it. So the next place for our superhero to visit is a forge of action when they will learn to craft perfect buttons. So few key elements around designing our buttons is that each button should have a clear and action-orientated labels. So things like save, submit, delayed, or continue. If we need to avoid any ambiguity, we need to define for the user what exactly will happen when they will click on that or any of the buttons. The next one is also visual feedback for the users around using the buttons. So we need to implement things like hover states or active states, and also a confirmation when the buttons are clicked on and what's going to happen next. Also the next important element is sizing and colors. We already covered that very briefly before, but introducing colors and differentiating primary and secondary buttons are also very important in here. And the next one is the placement of the buttons and consistency. So if we have multiple screen and we have buttons that have a similar function, we should always aim to place them on the in the same place on our screen. So a quick look into the anatomy of a button. So when we're designing the buttons, it's not just a single decision we need to make. We need to ensure things like we need to give enough padding around the buttons. We need to have readable labels for it, and also make sure that the background for the buttons and the text have enough contrast. So again, all those things to consider when designing our buttons. Next one is also ensuring next one is also ensuring that when we applying some borders, to have the consistent borders around the buttons and any containers we're using. Again, it's just more easy for the eye eye is more easily guided around those familiar patterns than if we will have a mix of different roundness. Good rule to apply is that double W for giving enough padding on the top and on the sides for the labels. And also we need to ensure enough spacing between the buttons if we are placing them next to each other. Another couple of things to watch out for is the primary and secondary buttons. As I mentioned before, first of all, we need to differentiate the colors between them. And secondly, the placement of the primary and the secondary button is also important. So if we are in a culture of reading from left to right, as you can see, I'm sure how I can pointing it out that as you can see, if we'll place it okay, which is our primary button on the left and then secondary on the right, that it will take us 3 steps to read that. But if we will place the primary one on the right, then it will take just 2 steps for the user to understand and agree to the primary action. So moving next, we have moving next is the Greenlandia and Tower of Power. So a few times I mentioned the idea of the visual hierarchy before through our session. But apart from having the visual hierarchy using the fonts and colors, it's also very important to ensure that overall hierarchy within the app. So because that will drive the user attention to the most important element first, whether that's going to be a call for action or a headline or any critical piece of information. So we need to consider like the entire screen once we will create those individual elements. Next one is the alignment. So basically using the options to align to the left, to the right, to the center. Again, it's just easier for the user to follow that. When it comes to the when it comes to the model-driven app, we should follow that F pattern when we're creating the forms and placing the fields. Also, we should aim for the consistent app frame. So what I mean by that, if we have things like menu or a search buttons or so on the screen, they should always be placed on the same in the same location. So if user will open a screen, they know where to look for certain functions. And the next one is using the grids. So I'll show you an example in here of 8x8 grid. So what that means that if you imagine your screen size and divide it into 8x8 pixel screen, then if you're placing your elements, you are using the multiples of number 8 to leave the spacing between those elements. So if I would now remove that the grid from the background, as you can see, it's all it's more readable for the user because the fields are grouped together, but there's also enough space in between the button, the call for action, and also the headline. So moving next, we have our Pathfinders Guild. So in here we are discovering lessons for mastering navigations for the apps. The first element is the information architecture. So what does it mean? So usually try to start with mapping the content of your app and how each of the screens will flow. Where possible, we should always limit the number of clicks for the user to perform any certain action or find information within our application. The next one is to optimize, to give user a way of wayfinding where they are on the app. So each screen should answer questions like where am I, how did I get here, and where I can go. I'll show an example of it on the next page in a second. Also, we should be applying the same navigation patterns consistently across our screen. I mentioned that before around having that app frame, but again, that should apply to all the elements within our application. And the next one is the responsive navigation. So it doesn't matter what device the user will use. It's important for the user to have the expectation that if certain things are placed next to each other on one screen, they should have the similar experiences when using a different device. I'm just conscious of time. I think I need to speed up a bit. So looking at the model-driven apps, again, we need to organize the information and use the areas and groups and pages. And then, as I mentioned before, for that wayfinding, our screens should answer those questions. How did I get here? So this is, I came from my tickets. Where am I? That's the view ticket headline. And then where can I go? This is added, that's a specific form. So moving next, we have the museum, the gallery. So looking at the galleries in the Canvas apps, we should always aim for a minimal design and clear structure. We cannot we should avoid placing too many columns within the galleries and too many elements, just to not overwhelm the users and make it easier for them to digest and comprehend, understand any data. Again, giving a little bit, giving enough white space in between elements is also very helpful here. Any information display in the gallery should always have a clear labels. When it comes to large volumes of data, when we expect there's quite a significant amount of record, we should apply the filters and also give the users ability to search through those records. And opposite situation, when there is no data or anything to display in our galleries, we should clearly communicate that to our user by saying no results found. Again, when it comes to our forms, to our galleries, if we are encouraging user to add any new records, we should introduce data loss prevention tools. And again, the same, we should have some data validation, or ideally to guide the user, we should have some placeholder to display what should be the proper formatting, for example, for providing date fields or things like emails. Nested galleries can be quite controversial. In certain scenarios, they can really give that extra user experience by giving the option to explore from one thing to another for the user. However, again, we need to be conscious of using that as they can have quite slow responsiveness on the app, which will cause the opposite effect of not very friendly user experience. So that was a bit of a solo mission for our Canvas app. Now reuniting again with our model-driven apps, we're moving to the place called error gate. And then the error gate, our user learning about mastering the error handling and the feedback. And also in our error gate, our user meeting glitch master malfunctioners. So to be able for our users to pass through the gates, they need to defeat that little monster in here. So few lessons here. The first one is the preventative design. So we should always aim to minimize any possibilities of the errors occurring in the first place for the users. However, as we know, it's not always possible. So again, we should always aim to have to use things like on error or if error within our functions in a Canvas app, or implement some business rules or JavaScript in the model-driven apps, so to handle the scenarios when something went wrong for our users. And when the things like this happening as well, we should clearly communicate to the users to say what happened, and ideally also guide them what they should do next to fix that error. And again, if the error will happen, we need to give some visual cues to point out where that error happened for the users. And over time, we should also aim to monitor potential errors and have notification, and again, improve the error handling functionalities over time for the users. Moving next, we have the speed sanctuary. So this one is around optimizing performance. So if our apps working and are responsive, that can really improve the overall user experience and satisfaction. So we should always aim for optimizing things like efficient data loading. We should optimize the query only to show the information that is relevant and to the users at any given time. Again, try to avoid long formulas if possible within the Canvas app, and introduce some background logic if possible. Again, if you're still using the classic real-time workflows within the model-driven app, again, they should be really limited. The same for any data-driven controls, so things like any lookup fields or timelines. If you do need to use them on the form, avoid placing them on the first tab, because again, that will cause some slowness of loading that form for the users. So moving next, we have a bridge of inclusion. So the bridge of inclusion is symbolizing the accessibility. If you're not familiar with, there are some worldwide guidelines for creating online applications and website. They refer to as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So the few key aspects about ensuring that accessibility for our users, it's screen reader compatibility. So using what they are referred to as ARIA labels. Also within our Canvas apps, there is alt text. So this is what is used by the screen reader. So again, make sure that it's always populated when building your apps. Next one is the color contrast. Again, there are multiple add-ons and Chrome extension that can really help us to test accessibility and enough color contrast. And the last one is also keyboard navigation. So ensuring that if someone might struggle with using the mouse, the alternative for them is using the keyboard instead. So moving next, it's the customization castle. So very briefly in here, giving some personal experiences to the user can really create those unique experiences for them. And can also increase that user engagement and prompt user to use our apps more frequently and effectively. Again, as of today, there are some limitation of providing those personal experiences for the model-driven apps. However, we can implement some customization within a Canvas app. So even the welcome screens with the names and introducing, for example, different color schemes that the user can choose from and save, and then retrieve the preferred color scheme for them next time they're using the app, already can boost that personalization and making, as I said, those experiences better for our users. And the next one is finding the performance balance. So again, we might try to add some multiple elements to our app to boost that personalization. However, if that will be done at the cost of app working slower than usual, than would be expected, then again, it should be avoided. That balance should be kept. And time for the very last adventure at the echo chamber. So again, the last place that our heroes are visiting, it's quite similar to the very first place they visited to start with, the Empathy Heartland. However, echo chamber it's more refers more to collecting that feedback for the user once we will implement that application for them, and the user will start using it. We need to assume that we might not get everything perfect for the users to start with, and also the fact that over time some of the requirements might change for the users. So we need to aim to provide some feedback mechanism, like sending occasional surveys and so on, to gather that feedback from the user and improve the design over time and put some enhancements in. Again, we can look into some behavioral analytics for the apps, just to see what is the most used function, what screens and functions the user use the most. Again, when we have that feedback from the user, we cannot just leave it an action. We always need to try to listen to our users and also implement those enhancements, just to build that trust and loyalty over time. So as promised at the very beginning, when our users successfully complete all the lessons throughout our Power Apps UX verse, and as the user promised them, they found the crown of user delight. Okay, so if you would like to find more UA and UX and also Power Platform related content, you can find me on LinkedIn, and also find my blog. And as I mentioned before at the beginning of the call, there's also a monthly user group that runs on the 11th of each month, when we have various speakers covering things around Power Platform, and user experience, user interface, and also accessibility. And again, it's not just Power Apps, it's Power Platform. So in the future, we also plan sessions around the Power BI, Power Pages, and so on. So I highly encourage you to follow either me personally or the user group. Okay, I think I'm on time. If there are any questions, and I can stop sharing my screen if that's okay.
Thanks, Anna.
Did I? Okay.
Thank you very much, Anna. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Slides are incredible, by the way.
So no
Absolutely
questions.
Gorgeous. There's a lot of chat been going on, and there's some useful links been put in the chat column as well. Rory's been promoting some of this on LinkedIn. Thanks, Rory.
I didn't know how much to put on. I thought it might be a bit. I might be getting into your IP and that, so I took a few more shots, but left it there. I couldn't join the chat either, the meeting chat. So.
Oh no,
that's okay.
I'm happy to share the slides if anyone wants. Like I have like no, they are not my precious. I'm always happy to share things with everyone, as I hope I've proven so far. So no, if you,
really
Rory,
good. Thank you.
If you want, I can update. I usually put things on my GitHub, so I can do that. But if I'm going to be able to, because warning is the slide deck with all the animation and everything, it's 300 megabytes.
So is it a PowerPoint?
It is a PowerPoint.
Oh, wow.
It is a PowerPoint. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a very big PowerPoint of 300 megabytes.
Very good.
So yes, thank you so much for joining. Are there any questions?
No, I really enjoyed it. I thought I think some of those points that you raised around when I first started doing things around design, I'm rubbish at it, by the way. But I kind of came across this thing called Gestalt principles, and I don't know if that's what you mentioned during it, but if people look up Gestalt principles, it's a kind of branch of psychology that relates to how we perceive objects. And so a lot of the things that you came up with were actually things that fit within that kind of those theories that came out in the 1920s.
Yes, so they are Gestalt principles. I don't know if you follow Elena Drakulewska. She does some Power BI UX as well. She did quite at least couple of sessions, and she runs them around the Gestalt principles. But there's also something referred to as Jakob Nielsen.
Right.
Laws of heuristics. So
Okay.
like if you will ever on LinkedIn, there is this Jakob Nielsen. He has like 1 million followers. I might be making that up, but he's like the guru of UX as well. So like I follow him and I try to understand what he's doing and then apply into the into the Power Apps. So I'm not reinventing wheel. It's more kind of seeing what is there and how to apply it. So I highly recommend him. I can try to, if we have a minute, I can try to quickly find him on the.
I think I found him.
Did you?
Yeah, he's got 148,000 followers, so it's probably him.
Yes. Okay. So not million. Okay, I made that up.
That's all right. Well, it's not bad.
No, as I said, he's really good. He's really good, and yes. So if I can you put his LinkedIn to the chat for me then?
I can't do I can't use the chat at the moment.
Oh yes, you did say.
So
Apologies.
it's Jakob and then Nielsen, Nielsen.
Yes, Andrew Smalley. He did presentation. Is that him? Yes, and Andrew Smalley did the presentation for the user group, and he covered those the laws by him before. So again, you can navigate to the YouTube channel for the user group, and you can have a look if you want to.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I'll take it as a no. I'll try to catch up with the chat. So thank you so much, Sarah, for hosting me.
Thank you for coming. More than welcome. Really pleased that we got around to doing this session because I know you got some great feedback in Vegas. And just to highly recommend the user group as well, A11Y's. Brilliant. So I'd recommend to go to that. It's 11th of each month, isn't it?
11 of each month. Yes. The next meeting in December is going to be slightly later than usual. We have one speaker from Australia, one speaker from New Zealand. So you haven't seen that. I think the one session is around the tips and tricks for model-driven apps. And then we also have Hamish running a session on prototyping as well. So it's two slightly different angles, but yeah, overall, I encourage you to attend. Oh, thank you, Charlie. My wingman is here from the user group.
Teamwork.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Great to see you. And Rory, thanks for the support as well. And everyone for coming along as well. And hope to see you all soon.
Take care.
Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.